I never imagined my life would spiral into such chaos. My name is Jimmy, and what started as a simple love story turned into a tangled web of secrets, forbidden desires, and unbearable guilt. I stare at the 2 pregnancy tests on the counter, one belongs to my wife, the other to her mother. Both women carrying my child. How did I get here? What choice did I make that led to this point? This is my confession, and nothing will ever be the same again. When Emily and I got married, things felt perfect, almost too perfect. She was beautiful, smart, and passionate, the kind of woman I thought only existed in daydreams. After the wedding, we agreed to move in with her mother for a few months to save up for our own place. It sounded like a practical plan. Emily's mom, Claire, had a spacious house, lived alone since her divorce, and insisted we'd be no trouble. "It'll be like a honeymoon with better food," she joked the first day we moved in. But there was something else. Something I didn't see coming. From the very first day, Claire's presence had a strange effect on me. She was nothing like I had expected. She was sharp, confident, and carried herself with a magnetic grace. There was a warmth in her laughter and a teasing tone in the way she spoke to me. Not inappropriate, not yet, but it lingered in the air, like a storm waiting behind summer clouds. The first few nights went smoothly. We were adjusting, setting up our small space upstairs, and Emily had just started her new job. That left me home most of the day. Claire worked from home, too. I tried to keep my distance, tried to respect boundaries, but I'd be lying if I said her presence didn't stir something in me. One morning, I came downstairs in just a t-shirt and pajama pants. I didn't think she'd be home. But there she was, sitting at the breakfast table in a silk robe, sipping coffee, legs crossed casually. Her robe slipped just enough to reveal too much, but she didn't adjust it. She just smiled. "Sleep well?" she asked, eyes locked on mine longer than necessary. I stammered a reply and quickly turned away. But from that moment on, the air between us changed. There were stolen glances, late-night conversations in the kitchen while Emily was asleep, innocent touches that lingered a bit too long. Claire never crossed a line, not clearly, but she danced on the edge of it, and so did I. The first time I truly saw Claire, not just as Emily's mother, but as a woman, was a moment I still can't shake. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. Emily was out with friends, and I was fixing a cabinet door that kept sticking in the kitchen. Claire walked in, barefoot, holding a glass of wine, wearing a fitted black top and jeans that hugged her figure in a way that made me instantly uncomfortable. Not because it was inappropriate, though maybe it was, but because I noticed. And I couldn't unnotice. "Need a hand?" she asked, stepping closer. Her tone was casual, but her presence filled the room. I shook my head, pretending to focus on the hinge. "I've got it." She crouched beside me anyway, close enough that I could smell her perfume, subtle, warm, intoxicating. "You're handy," she said softly. "Emily's lucky." That was the first time I felt something flicker between us. It wasn't just me imagining it. There was a pause in her voice, a look in her eyes, lingering, testing. She wasn't just making conversation. She was measuring the distance between us, emotionally, physically. Claire was nothing like the mothers I'd known. She didn't lecture or nag. She was fiercely independent, with a flirtatious wit and an awareness of her own allure. She knew she was attractive, and she didn't hide it. And unlike Emily, who sometimes buried herself in her routines, Claire made me feel seen. Over the weeks, we talked more. Sometimes in the evenings over wine. Sometimes while Emily was busy, just short exchanges in the hallway or the garden. She told me about her failed marriage, about how lonely the house had felt before we moved in. And I found myself sharing things I hadn't even told Emily, my fears, my career doubts, my insecurities. There was nothing physical between us, yet, but there was intimacy. A kind of closeness that made me feel alive, needed, dangerous. Claire had this ability to pull emotions out of me, twist them, then hand them back with a smile. It was never supposed to happen. But some things don't need to be spoken to be real. The air between Claire and me began to thicken with something we both refused to name. We never crossed any explicit lines, but every glance, every accidental brush of skin, every shared moment when Emily wasn't around felt like a thread pulling tighter, dragging us towards something inevitable. One evening, Emily was running late from work. I was in the living room, flipping through channels, and Claire came in with a glass of wine in each hand. "You look bored," she said with a teasing smile. "Mind some company?" I hesitated but took the glass. "Of course not." We sat close, too close. A romantic drama played on the screen, forgotten background noise to the tension building in the room. Claire laughed at something I said, and her hand briefly touched my knee. Just a second, maybe two. But it stayed there long enough to matter. I looked at her. She looked back. Neither of us moved. Then, as if suddenly remembering herself, she pulled away. "Sorry," she whispered. But her voice didn't sound sorry at all. It sounded scared, excited, too. From that moment, everything changed. We began moving around the house like dancers who knew the steps but refused to acknowledge the music. If Emily was in the room, Claire and I became polite strangers. But when she wasn't, when it was just the two of us, we flirted with fire. There was the time our hands touched while reaching for the same bowl. The time she walked past me in a robe that barely clung to her skin. The time she bent a little too slowly to pick something up, glancing back to see if I was watching. I always was. We didn't need to speak about it. The attraction pulsed between us like electricity in the walls, waiting for one of us to flip the switch. We found reasons to be near each other, to linger in conversations, to lock eyes across a room when Emily wasn't looking. Loving Emily was easy. She was gentle, organized, and endlessly loyal, the kind of woman who made you feel safe, like no matter how chaotic the world became, she'd be your calm. She was predictable in the best way, morning routines, little notes left in my lunch, the way she'd hum while folding laundry. Her love was quiet, like a soft blanket wrapped around my shoulders. Comforting. Familiar. But Claire was chaos wrapped in elegance. Where Emily was soft, Claire was sharp. She didn't follow routines, she commanded moments. Claire could change the temperature of a room just by walking into it. She challenged me, flirted with danger, made me feel like I was being pulled into something forbidden and irresistible. Conversations with her left me rattled, questioning my sanity, and craving more. With Emily, everything was planned. Date nights, bills, future discussions, color palettes for the nursery we hadn't even started yet. She dreamed in security and structure. She wanted the traditional life, a husband, a child, a family photo on the mantle. Claire, on the other hand, lived in the now. She didn't talk about the future, she unraveled the present. She'd pour wine at noon and say, "Time doesn't matter when the company's right." She spoke of passion like it was a necessity, not a luxury. And every time she looked at me, I felt something inside me shift, like I was someone else, someone braver, darker, freer. I started to resent the ease of life with Emily. It felt small. Like I was suffocating in perfection. Claire made me feel alive, reckless, like I was standing on the edge of something that could either destroy me or set me on fire. It tore me apart. I loved Emily. I did. But when I was near Claire, I questioned if that love was strong enough to keep me away from what I was truly craving. Not just her body, but her chaos, her power, the feeling of being wanted in a way Emily never showed. It wasn't fair. But infidelity never is. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, John showed up, Claire's ex-husband, Emily's estranged father. Unannounced. Uninvited. His sudden arrival cracked open a past Claire had buried deep and stirred emotions in her I'd never seen before: anger, vulnerability, fear. And for the first time, I saw Claire not as the seductress, but as a woman scarred by love. But what shocked me most? The way she looked at me when John wasn't watching, like I was her escape. Olivia, Emily's best friend, pulled me aside one evening. Her eyes narrowed, voice low. "I don't know what's going on between you and Claire," she said, "but I see it. And it's dangerous." Her words hit like ice water. I laughed it off, but inside, panic spread. Someone had noticed. After that, every glance, every shared moment with Claire felt heavier. Emily remained clueless, but Olivia's eyes followed me like a shadow. And the walls around this secret began to close in. The rain had been falling all day, but by nightfall, it turned into a storm, thunder rumbling low like a warning, lightning flashing through the curtains. Emily had gone to her parents' lake house with Olivia for a weekend away, one Claire had insisted she take to relax. That left me alone in the house, or so I thought. I was in the living room, lights dimmed, a drink in my hand, trying to ignore the gnawing thoughts that had been eating away at me for weeks. Then I heard her footsteps, soft, deliberate. Claire entered in a robe, damp hair falling loosely over her shoulders, a wine glass in hand. "I thought you went to bed," I said, trying to sound casual, like my heart wasn't already pounding. "I couldn't sleep," she said softly. "Storms do that to me." She sat beside me, closer than she should have, curling her legs under her. Her robe shifted slightly, revealing her thigh, and I knew then that if I didn't leave the room, something would happen. I should have walked away. I should have thought of Emily. But I didn't. We talked. About everything and nothing. Her past with John, how it never really healed. My fears about becoming a husband, a father. The wine warmed my chest, but her eyes were fire. Every word we exchanged stripped us down, layer by layer, until silence settled like smoke between us. And then she touched my hand. I didn't pull away. Her fingers traced along my palm, delicate and intentional. The storm outside grew louder, but inside the room, everything stilled. I looked at her, really looked, and saw a woman aching to be wanted. And in that moment, I wasn't Emily's husband. I was just a man, weak and lost. She leaned in. Our lips met. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, like we'd both been waiting for it. Her hand slid into my hair, mine around her waist, pulling her closer until the space between guilt and desire disappeared. We didn't speak. Words would have broken it. It wasn't love. It was need. And when it ended, when we both sat breathless and broken, I realized the storm outside was nothing compared to the one we had just unleashed inside. Emily wasn't supposed to come home early. I was in the kitchen when I heard the front door open, too soon, too quiet. I turned, heart pounding, only to see her standing there, pale, shaking, holding Claire's robe in one hand, and my phone in the other. Her eyes were red, like she'd already cried an ocean before walking through the door. "I read everything," she whispered. "The messages. The photos." Time stopped. My mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "You slept with my mother." Her voice cracked, and so did the world around me. Claire appeared behind me, frozen, guilty. Emily didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stepped back, like the air itself was poison. "You destroyed everything." And then she was gone, out the door, into the rain. And I knew, in that moment, nothing would ever fix what I had broken. The days that followed were hollow. Emily disappeared from my life as quickly as she'd entered it, no calls, no messages, no note left behind. Her things vanished from the closet in the blink of an eye, and suddenly the house, once filled with her soft laughter and warm presence, felt like a graveyard of broken promises. The silence was unbearable. Claire tried to speak to me that night, to explain, to justify, but I couldn't even look at her. The guilt pressed against my chest like a stone I couldn't lift. I couldn't decide who I hated more, myself, or the woman who once felt like fire and now felt like poison. Everywhere I turned, I saw Emily. Her coffee mug still on the shelf. Her hair tie still looped around the bathroom handle. Her scent lingered on the pillow we once shared. And every small detail stabbed deeper into my conscience. I tried reaching out to her. I called. I texted. I even drove to Olivia's apartment, hoping Emily might be hiding there. But Olivia answered the door with eyes full of fury. "You don't deserve her," she spat before slamming the door in my face. And honestly, she was right. I had destroyed a good woman. A loyal one. The kind of love people pray for. And for what? A fleeting night of weakness that turned into a permanent scar. Claire didn't speak much after that. We passed each other like ghosts in the hallway. One night, she came into the living room, looked at me with tears in her eyes, and whispered, "We broke her." Then she turned and left, locking herself in her room. She was pregnant now, carrying a child that had no place in this fractured family. And I couldn't even look at her belly without feeling sick. I moved out a week later. The house that once promised a new beginning had turned into a shrine of shame. I rented a small apartment on the edge of town, bare walls, one chair, one bed, and far too much time to think. The silence followed me there too. I heard through a mutual friend that Emily had gone to stay with relatives upstate. And that she, too, was pregnant. The weight of it all was unbearable. I was going to be a father, twice. To two women who now despised each other. To two children who might grow up never understanding the full extent of their family's collapse. I wanted to believe there would be redemption someday, that maybe time would dull the edges of this heartbreak. But some wounds don't heal. Some choices echo forever. And in the ruins of what was once love, I was left with nothing but regret. Claire's pregnancy was marked by silence and shadows. She rarely spoke, rarely smiled. Her belly grew, but so did the distance between us. She chose to raise the child alone, refusing help, yet never letting me forget what we'd done. Her path was cold, isolating, one forged from guilt, not love. Emily's pregnancy, I heard, was different. She moved in with her cousin, surrounded by support. She didn't block me, but she never answered either. Her silence hurt more than anger. She was building a life without me, a future where I was just a mistake. 2 women. 2 children. One broken man at the center of it all. And no way back. We didn't exchange pleasantries. She got straight to it. "I know about Claire," she said, voice even. "And I know she lost the baby." I nodded, throat tight. She took a breath. "I'm keeping ours." My heart twisted. "Emily, She raised a hand. "Don't. You don't get to explain anymore." There was no rage in her voice. No accusations. Just finality. "I won't stop you from being part of this child's life," she said. "But we will never be what we were again." I looked at her, tears threatening. "I never stopped loving you." She smiled, but it wasn't warm. "You just didn't love me enough." She stood, buttoned her coat, and walked away, leaving me with the truth I'd been running from since that first moment with Claire. Love, once broken, doesn't always heal. And some mistakes echo for the rest of your life. It happened in the middle of the night. Claire's scream shattered the quiet like glass. I rushed to her room and found her curled on the bathroom floor, trembling, blood on her legs, tears streaking her face. Her eyes met mine, hollow and terrified. "Something's wrong," she whispered, voice cracking. At the hospital, the words came like a hammer: miscarriage. She didn't cry at first. She just stared blankly at the ceiling, disconnected, as if a part of her had died with the child. I sat beside her, numb, guilt twisting inside me like a blade. I wanted to say something, anything that could bring comfort, but what comfort can a man offer the woman he betrayed his wife with, after losing the one thing she still had left? When Claire was discharged, she didn't return to the house. She moved in with a sister I'd never met, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than her presence ever did. I thought that was the end. Until a week later, I got a message from Emily. "We need to talk." My hands shook as I drove to the cafe she'd chosen, Neutral Ground. She sat outside, a coat wrapped around her, her face calm but unreadable. She looked older, stronger somehow, like grief had sharpened her instead of breaking her. We didn't exchange pleasantries. She got straight to it. "I know about Claire," she said, voice even. "And I know she lost the baby." I nodded, throat tight. She took a breath. "I'm keeping ours." My heart twisted. "Emily, She raised a hand. "Don't. You don't get to explain anymore." There was no rage in her voice. No accusations. Just finality. "I won't stop you from being part of this child's life," she said. "But we will never be what we were again." I looked at her, tears threatening. "I never stopped loving you." She smiled, but it wasn't warm. "You just didn't love me enough." She stood, buttoned her coat, and walked away, leaving me with the truth I'd been running from since that first moment with Claire. Love, once broken, doesn't always heal. And some mistakes echo for the rest of your life. Responsibility used to be just a word to me, a concept tied to bills, jobs, promises. But now, it wore a different face. It had Emily's eyes and the silent weight of an unborn child I might never fully know. After Claire's miscarriage and Emily's decision, the walls of my small apartment began to close in. Every morning I'd stare at the mirror, seeing the same man, but not recognizing him anymore. I was supposed to be preparing for fatherhood, but all I felt was failure. I tried to do the right things. I went to prenatal appointments when Emily allowed it. I sent money, bought baby things she hadn't asked for, tried to stay involved without overstepping. But the air between us was always heavy, strained by the wound I had caused and the space she now demanded. The worst part? I couldn't blame her. There were nights I'd lie awake, wondering what kind of father I could even be. How could I teach a child about loyalty, love, or trust when I had failed so badly at all three? How could I show up with clean hands when they were still stained by the choices that broke us? Claire, on the other hand, vanished almost completely. She didn't return my calls. Didn't answer texts. And deep down, I understood why. Losing the baby was the final chapter of something neither of us had the strength, or the right, to continue. I started therapy. Not because I thought it would fix everything, but because I needed to at least try. I needed to rebuild something from the rubble, even if it was just myself. Emily never promised forgiveness, but over time, she allowed small moments, brief conversations about baby names, nervous smiles during ultrasound visits. I clung to those moments like lifelines, knowing they were all I had left of a life that had once seemed whole. The responsibility wasn't just about fatherhood. It was about owning what I'd done and facing each day with the courage to be better, even if I couldn't undo the past. Emily and I now live separate lives, two parallel tracks that occasionally cross for doctor visits, future planning, and the quiet, tense moments that come with preparing to raise a child apart. There's no more anger between us, just a quiet understanding: we've both been changed forever. She's building a life without me, and I don't blame her. I, too, am rebuilding, learning to live with the consequences of what I broke. Our connection now is bound not by love, but by responsibility. Every time I see the growing curve of her belly, I'm reminded that some choices don't just haunt you, they shape you. And while we may never be together again, we'll always be tied to the same truth. Our child will carry both our names, both our stories, and the weight of what we did to get here. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and anticipation. I sat alone in the waiting room, surrounded by couples holding hands, whispering excitedly about names and nursery themes. I was the only one sitting with empty palms and a hollow chest. When Emily walked in, she didn't look at me, just gave her name at the counter and sat 3 chairs away. She looked beautiful. Glowing, tired, guarded. Our eyes met for only a second, and even that felt like too much and not enough. "Emily and James," the nurse called. We stood, walking side by side in silence. The hallway felt longer than it was. The exam room was small, quiet. Emily climbed onto the table without a word. I sat beside her, unsure if I had the right to hold her hand, or even to look too long. The tension was sharp, but the moment the screen lit up and that flickering heartbeat appeared, everything else disappeared. The baby was real. Moving. Alive. Emily's breath caught. Mine too. It wasn't just a consequence anymore, it was a person. A piece of both of us. The silence broke as the technician pointed out fingers, feet, the curve of the spine. Then the moment came. "Would you like to know the gender?" Emily looked at me. It was the first real look in weeks. I nodded. "It's a girl," the technician smiled. Emily let out a soft sound, half laugh, half sob. A single tear slipped down her cheek. And before I could stop myself, I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. For those few minutes, we weren't broken people. We were parents. We were 2 souls bound by a heartbeat on a screen and the weight of a little girl we hadn't met yet. After the appointment, we walked back to the parking lot together. Still quiet, but softer now. She turned to me before getting into her car and said, "She deserves better than what we were." I nodded. "But maybe we can still give her something good, separately." She gave me the faintest smile. "Maybe." And then she drove away, leaving me staring after her, not in regret, but in a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Claire's goodbye came not with words, but with a plain envelope left at my door. Inside was a handwritten note, short, neat, final. "I'm leaving for good. I need to start over, somewhere far from this mess. I don't blame you, Jimmy. We were both broken in the wrong moment. Take care of Emily, if she lets you. And be a better man for your daughter." No signature. Just the echo of a woman who once set my world on fire and then quietly vanished from it. I stood there for a long time, note in hand, heart heavy, not with longing, but with understanding. Claire had chosen silence, and in doing so, gave me the closure I didn't deserve but desperately needed. There would be no second chances with her. Only memories, blurry, painful, and hauntingly real. Her chapter in my story was over. And mine, with Emily and our daughter, was just beginning. Acceptance doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, through sleepless nights, unanswered messages, and long walks in the cold when you're trying to outrun your own reflection. There was a time I thought love would fix everything. That as long as I felt something powerful, it would justify the chaos it created. But love without loyalty, without responsibility, is just another form of destruction. Now, I wake up alone in a quiet apartment. The walls no longer echo with guilt, but they still remember. I see my mistakes in the mirror each morning, not with shame, but with clarity. I destroyed something beautiful. I betrayed someone pure. And yet, from the wreckage, life still bloomed. Emily and I speak more often now. Not as lovers, not as enemies, but as parents trying to raise a child with dignity in the ruins of their past. There's respect there now, maybe even a quiet kind of forgiveness, one that doesn't excuse what happened, but acknowledges that we are more than our worst moments. Claire is gone, and with her, the burning temptation that once ruled me. I don't chase her memory anymore. I let it sit where it belongs, in the past, heavy but unmoving. I visit Emily sometimes, sitting in the nursery we painted together after one cautious afternoon of shared effort. The crib is already there, tiny clothes folded neatly. I watch her move, graceful and calm, and I wonder how someone I hurt so deeply can still allow me into this sacred space. She doesn't say it out loud, but I think she's accepted it too. That we will raise our daughter with kindness. That love, though broken between us, can still be passed on, not as romance, but as steady, unconditional care. The weight of my choices never goes away. But now I carry it not as punishment, but as a reminder. Of what I lost. Of what I nearly destroyed. And of the fragile, beautiful life that came from it all. I'll never be the man I was before. But maybe, in time, I can become the man my daughter needs. And that's enough. Looking back, it feels like someone else lived this life, like I'm telling a story that belongs to a stranger. But every moment, every choice, every heartbeat of pain and regret, it was mine. This story didn't begin with betrayal. It began with love. I loved Emily. That part was real. But love, I've learned, is not just about passion or comfort. It's about loyalty, restraint, sacrifice. I failed at all three. And in that failure, I crossed a line with Claire, a line that changed everything. What started as glances and tension turned into a night I can never undo. And from that night, two paths emerged, one that ended in heartbreak and loss, and another that led to new life. Claire's miscarriage closed a chapter as suddenly as it began. Her silent goodbye was the final thread cut from the tangled web we'd spun. She left me not with blame, but with truth. A truth I carry like a scar. Emily's strength in the aftermath is something I'll never stop admiring. She could have disappeared forever, shut me out of our child's life, punished me every step of the way. But she didn't. She chose the harder road, the one where forgiveness is not spoken, but lived. Where co-parenting is built on boundaries, trust earned drop by drop. There is no fairy tale ending here. No last-minute reconciliation or dramatic reunion. Emily and I are not together. We likely never will be. But we're partners now in a different way, united not by romance, but by responsibility and a shared love for a little girl who deserves better than the mess we made. Our daughter is the only truly innocent thing in this entire story. She will grow up loved. She will know that her parents may have made mistakes, huge ones, but that they chose to rise above them for her. She will be the chapter we get to write together with care, honesty, and grace. As for me, I've changed. Not in some grand, redeeming way, but quietly, steadily. I no longer chase desire. I no longer justify weakness as love. I live slower now. I listen more. I think twice. Mistakes define you only if you let them. Growth begins the moment you stop running from the person you've been and decide to become someone better. This is my story, a story of love lost, trust broken, lives forever altered. But also a story of lessons learned, responsibilities embraced, and the slow, painful, beautiful road to redemption. And though it may not be a story of perfect endings, it is one of truth. And that's enough for me now.